Hello everyone and welcome to Who Wore It Better, the weekly segment in which I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Let's just get right into it. Raw begins with Dean Ambrose saying that Kurt Angle called him and made him the acting general manager for the night since they're in London. Fine. Then the Miz comes out and says, ha ha ha, Stephanie knew about Kurt's plan, so she made me the co-acting general manager, which is really dumb. I think this whole setup of the conflicting general managers, it could have worked, but it really was very poorly executed the whole night. It's built to set this conflict between Miz and Ambrose, but really the whole fact that they were authority figures almost played in no way into the rest of the show. It helped build up to their conflict and their individual matches, Miz and Finn Balor and Ambrose and Wyatt later on in the night. But beyond that, almost nothing happened. Since Stephanie McMahon is Kurt Angle's boss, what was stopping her from just saying, nope, I'm kiboshing this, Miz is the GM, the sole GM for the night, and that's it. I think it would have created a lot more interesting conflict in the show instead of having this non-existent conflict between Miz and Ambrose and their jurisdiction over Raw, which really makes no sense. If Dean Ambrose is going to put Miz in a match with Finn Balor, what's stopping him from just saying, nope, match isn't happening? Since at the end, he kind of made Finn Balor get disqualified on a bullshit rule, why didn't he just disqualify Finn Balor at the very beginning? Oh, your shoe's not tied properly, I'm going to disqualify you. Something like that. Like, why go through all the trouble of fighting Finn Balor in the first place to have that bullshit finish, which Dean Ambrose would later undo, but what's stopping Miz from going, no, actually, no, we're not undoing that, the match is over, the end. This whole Co-GM thing with Ambrose and Miz is so convoluted and added really nothing else to the rest of the show. To give you an example, later in the night, there was a match between Alicia Fox and Sasha Banks. By the way, great Northern Lights suplex by Alicia Fox in the match. But Alicia loses the match. Sasha's pinning her. As she's repositioning, Alicia's shoulder does pop up. And they catch this on the announce team and they say, hey, her shoulder was up. That's messed up. Why couldn't they have had it on the fly, Miz or Ambrose come out and say, no, restart the match, da-da-da. But no, the match just goes on. You have these authority figures who don't do anything. And here's the thing that really makes the whole co-GMs with Ambrose and Miz totally pointless, is that by the end of the night, they announced, hey, Kurt Angle just made this match for next week, Miz and Ambrose, for the Intercontinental title. Not only is that hot-shotting Extreme Rules, you're also just kind of taking the piss out of the whole reason these guys are authority figures in the first place. Like, if Angle is able to make matches from the comfort of his own home all along, then why even have Miz and Ambrose in those positions? It was totally convoluted and unnecessary. I know I'm jumping all over the timeline here, so forgive me. I will go on to the next thing. It's Alexa Bliss with Nia Jax in her corner taking on Mickie James with Bayley in her corner. I think this is really interesting. One of the few things I liked about Raw this week was the new dynamic between Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax, where they're both kind of like they're a partnership out of circumstance, where Nia Jax is like, okay, I'm going to be the next in line to get that championship match, and because you said good things about me, I'll protect you for now. And so Alexa Bliss is like, gulp, but she understands it's good to have this bodyguard with her kind of watching her back. I do wish that they used the verbiage best friends to describe them. Like, no, we just had a best friends storyline. Let's not use those two words together for a while for right now. We just had the best friend thing. Let's not have a new best friend thing. Moving on to a rematch between Braun Strowman and Kalisto that was made in the first segment of the night. Strowman comes out in a sling. He has an arm injury from his battles with Roman Reigns. It's a legit injury. Now, the reports of him being out anywhere from like 2 to 8 weeks, depending on what you read. It's kind of all over the place, but it sucks that Strowman is going to be out from active wrestling for this time. But here he is wrestling Kalisto. He said he would beat Kalisto with one arm, and then Ambrose says, okay, you're going to wrestle Kalisto with one arm then. And so that was kind of a funny moment in the beginning, but then you have this match, Strowman and Kalisto. Strowman says, no, I'm not accepting this match. I'm not going to do it. Lol, just kidding. He kicks Kalisto and just beats him up just with one leg. Basically, he stomps him, he boots him and everything. This is a weird thing because Kalisto is definitely trying to be built up as this like very strong, very proud individual. He's like, I will not be treated like garbage. I'm going to fight you. It would mean so much more if Kalisto actually won more in general, but also fought people besides Braun Strowman. So far since he's been on Raw, he's only fought Strowman. Once he won on a technicality, he was on a fluke win in the dumpster match, then he got murdered. He was put in the dumpster and tossed off the dreaded 3-foot stage. And here, he just gets beat up some more by Strowman before the match just kind of like gets thrown out, I guess, because Roman comes in. But anyway, no, the whole thing with Kalisto is I get what they're trying to do with him, and it could mean so much more if he is built better. I mean, like I said with the dumpster match, is this going to mean more of a push for him? Is it going to mean more wins against credible opponents? Or is he just going to get jobbed out like he was on SmackDown? I don't know. One thing's for sure, I hate his new theme music. Anyway, Roman Reigns comes out. He's all bandaged up still. They have a brawl. Roman hits Strowman with like 3 or 4 Superman punches before Strowman powders. They brawl to the outside. At one point, Reigns tears off the sling of Strowman's arm and runs his arm into the turnbuckle post. One of them looks really shitty, kind of a miscommunication thing. Kind of think Scott Steiner, Christian from TNA with the stairs, the ring apron several years ago. You know what I'm talking about. Reigns gets a chair, hits Strowman in the arm and a little bit in the head a couple times with the chair, and Strowman retreats. First of all, if Strowman is legit injured to that arm, then major props to him for working with the hurt arm, with Roman, and doing the whole turnbuckle spot, getting hit with the chair. That's just brutal. I mean, if your arm's already injured, that can't feel very good. So anyway, Strowman retreats. Roman looks exceptionally strong here. The one thing that kind of got in my craw with this brawl, I didn't mind the brawl at all. I didn't mind Strowman retreating, but what pissed me off was the fact that Strowman is selling his arm like death. He's like, he runs away. And Roman, who's got these internal injuries, and he's got broken ribs, you know, and everything, he barely sells the injuries at all. Like, he does the whole pose, and then like he get this little thing, I slept wrong last night. That's like the extent of how he sold his injuries to me. It was just so weak and non-committal. Like, that was a thing that kind of took me out of it. Because Strowman, you could see the pain looked genuine on him, but with Roman, he wasn't selling it. So I like the idea of the brawl, but Roman's not selling it very well. Kind of took me out of it. A tag team turmoil match to find the new #1 contenders for the Raw tag titles. Tag team turmoil, what is this? SmackDown? Anyway, teams numbers 1 and 2 are Enzo and Cass and Cesaro and Sheamus, who, by the way, looked amazing through this whole thing. I have nothing but good things to say about Cesaro and Sheamus as heels, especially in this match. Cesaro makes Enzo tap out at the sharpshooter pretty quickly. Out comes Slater and Rhino. They beat those guys up on the outside early on. Sheamus takes out Slater with a brogue kick pretty quickly. Then in come Gallows and Anderson. They take out Gallows and Anderson. They break up the Magic Killer, and Sheamus hits Gallows with a brogue kick. So now the final team is the Golden Truth, and they've built kind of a mini storyline, a mini redemption attempt storyline with these two. They hinted at it last week, and I was thinking, well, gosh, you know, if they're planting the seeds for something like this, that usually means they're going to pull the trigger on it, you would think. At least have them, you know, maybe become #1 contenders. But in surprising fashion, that was not the case. The Golden Truth comes out of 5. They're fighting the very fatigued Cesaro and Sheamus. They're looking very strong, especially during R-Truth's hot tag, but he misses a corner splash. Cesaro rolls him up, and Cesaro and Sheamus win the match. They are the new #1 contenders. So now you have this question of where do Goldust and R-Truth go from here? Like, was this just kind of a mini story arc between the two of them to have this like attempt at redemption? What happens to the team now? You know, maybe these two are going to branch off of their own thing for a bit while Cesaro and Sheamus go their way and fight the Hardys for the tag titles. I'm very curious to see what happens to the Golden Truth from here, because it would seem very weird to have the seeds planted for this redemption story and have them kind of yank the rug out from under it and not have something else like long-term beyond that. I'm very curious to see what happens there. Seth Rollins taking on Samoa Joe in a rematch from Payback. Of course, Samoa Joe did the run-in on Seth during the Triple Threat last week. They had a backstage brawl earlier in this night. So this match was a continuation of that. Very much a fight, a war between these two. These guys had a great physical contest here, much like their match at Payback. I was pretty much entertained for this match. It was a good, hard-fought battle between the two. The match ends when there's a struggle. Rollins pulls off the top turnbuckle pad incidentally. Then he gets thrown chest first into the exposed turnbuckle by Joe, then head first into it after the referee's warning not to. Joe is disqualified, but Joe doesn't care. He puts Rollins in the coquina clutch, makes him pass out, and it looks great for Joe in the short term, but I mean, these two have to stop fighting over Triple H. That's basically what has been happening since Rollins tweaked his knee all those weeks ago, and it's still happening now. I think especially Joe needs to move on and do something different, you know, whether it's fighting somebody else or fighting Seth Rollins over something besides the glory and honor of Triple H. Better late than never, I guess. 2.5 hours into Raw, we finally get our one and only Cruiserweight segment for the night. A big contrast from last week. Last week, you had 2 Cruiserweight matches of a considerable length and action. And this week, you have 1 match, and it was over in like 2 or 3 minutes. It was pretty quick. Earlier in the night, Neville told TJP he needs to have a marquee victory against Jack Gallagher, and then he might consider a championship match down the line. He was very non-committal. Anyway, the match ends when TJP rolls up Gallagher, grabs the tights for the win. Thank God the camera wasn't straight on with that roll-up because there was definitely a full moon when those tights were grabbed. Anyway, TJP gets Gallagher in the knee bar after the fact, and then Austin Aries makes the save, dressed like someone out of the Star Trek The Next Generation, and that's where the segment ends. The main event was Bray Wyatt taking on Dean Ambrose in a match that was made by Co-GM The Miz. Not much to say about this match in particular. Miz was on commentary. At one point, he tries to steal the Intercontinental Championship belt. Ambrose gets involved with that. Miz hits Dean Ambrose with the belt while the referee's not looking. Bray hits Sister Abby on Dean and wins the match. Good for Bray. But my question is, wasn't there a whole thing with Bray Wyatt and Finn Balor last week? Like, were they planting the seeds with that? And then a couple of weeks ago when Bray had a promo on Finn Balor, and here there was no acknowledgement of that and no advancement of whatever they're doing with Bray and Finn, like at all. Like, you don't even know why Bray was there. Like, why is he there answering the bidding of the Miz? He's the guy who does what he wants. Last week, I'm gonna make this my personal playground, Randy. There's no Randy there, but you get what I'm saying. And he's put in this match, doesn't do anything about it. He just beats Dean Ambrose, but there's no follow through with Finn Balor, which is what we were led to believe last week in the triple threat. So I don't know anymore. SmackDown begins with the champion, Randy Orton, coming out to the ring, showing absolutely no ill effects from the House of Horrors match at Payback. Everything Bray Wyatt said about, oh, you're never going to be the same, Randy. Your mind will be in purgatory, Randy. It was all whatever. Orton no sold the creepy dolls. So what's going to phase Randy Orton if creepy hanging dolls on a random Wiccan thing doesn't scare Randy Orton in the House of Horrors match? Anyway, he comes out and says that Jinder cost him the House of Horrors match, so he's going to fight Jinder Mahal and beat him. Jinder interrupts and says some words. He says, people at the Taj Mahal are going to celebrate. They're going to build a statue in his image, in his honor when he wins. But then all of a sudden, America, 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 America. The new face of America, Kevin Owens, comes out and says nobody cares about Orton, nobody cares about Jinder, nobody cares about London. It's all about Kevin Owens and the fact that he ended Jericho's career, and now he's going to end AJ Styles' career at Backlash. AJ Styles comes out, he says some words. Baron Corbin comes out, he's going to say some words, but then Sami Zayn jumps him from behind. They have a big old six-man brawl. I smell a tag team match coming on. Becky Lynch taking on Natalya in singles action. Natalya is introduced by James Ellsworth and Carmella. Becky Lynch is introed by Naomi, who tells the crowd to make some bloody noise. Charlotte comes out as well and introduces herself, and so then you have this whole dynamic where there's people in the corner of Becky and people in the corner of Natalya. The match ends when Becky's on the second rope. Tamina gets on the apron and Naomi shoves Tamina. Charlotte picks up Naomi, literally picks her up like a child and carries her off, which is the weirdest visual. I've seen people get split up and broken up in fights before. The fact she literally picked her up and carried her away was a pretty hilarious visual. But anyway, Becky's distracted. Natalya pulls Becky off of the second rope, and that was all it took for Natalya to pin and defeat Becky Lynch. And so now in the end, you have this backstage moment with all three of the face women, Becky, Charlotte, and Naomi, and they're going to bond at Backlash. I feel like the way they've been treating Charlotte, especially just in this episode, it was very Charlotte light. It was very, they try to make her a heel saying, oh, I'm still the best. I don't need an introduction. It was just, but it seems so campy, if that makes any sense. It just didn't feel like Charlotte how she normally is. I feel like some of the edge was taken off, and I get that because she is kind of a de facto face in the situation, but I think you can still pull off that bitchy character she had on Raw and not totally make her kind of a parody of herself. I feel that's kind of what she was like on SmackDown. I mean, maybe it's a small sample size and I'm overthinking it. Maybe we'll see what happens on SmackDown the next week in the Go Home, but that's just my take on Charlotte right now. The Fashion Files London unit, it's a segment with Breezango doing more investigative work as the Fashion Police. Fandango's dressed as Sherlock Holmes, which is a nice little touch because they're in London. Great stuff. I love the bit where Fandango just walks through the caution tape line, just doesn't even step over it around, he just walks on through it. They're tracking a trail of face paint. They think it's the Uggos, turns out it's the Ascension, and I guess this is the way they set up it was a really weird setup for a match. The Ascension case reopened. They just found the Ascension just yelling at each other in a small room. It was weird. The sketch itself had some chuckle moments, but it wasn't as funny as their first Fashion Files from last week. But it leads into a tag match with the two of them. Breezango makes short work of the Ascension here. Fandango hits Victor with the top rope leg drop. Then the Usos come out and they cut a pretty funny promo, the whole 12 days thing. Again, if you go on YouTube and find the thing, because I think it was actually a pretty clever promo. But yeah, pretty strong stuff from the Usos at the end, and Breezango looking good as they go into their match at Backlash. Luke Harper taking on Eric Rowan in singles action. Not a lot of heat to this match in my opinion, because even though the announcers kept bringing up the fact that these two were former Wyatt family members, I think it's a very good foundation for a rivalry. I didn't really see it here, because Harper, his stock has fallen so dramatically ever since WrestleMania time, and Eric Rowan, he is always getting injured. He's always in and out of TV so often. It's hard to build anything up with him. He's just kind of there. He's just the big guy in the big garbage bag with no sleeves and a big scary sheet mask. And that's pretty much all it is. The match wasn't much to it. Rowan distracted the ref with the mask. He pokes Harper in the eye with the thumb. He gets to this weird spinning power slam finisher, and Rowan wins. Bet you they're not going to follow up on that one. Dolph Ziggler comes out and cuts the exact same promo you've heard from every heel over the last 5 years or so. It's like, you guys are all hypocrites. You know, you never did anything for me as fans. I don't need you fans. It's such boilerplate stuff from Ziggler. He calls out Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke comes out, and Dolph says he wants Nakamura to prove himself. You know, you have to have your first match on SmackDown. Shinsuke accepts the challenge. They're about to fight, and then Dolph just goes, nope, which actually that delivery kind of got a laugh out of me. He says the match is going to happen on his terms at Backlash. So, you know, this confirms what we've known for a long time, that Shinsuke's debut is going to be at Backlash. His main roster debut, I should say, will be on Backlash. It's just a shame because the way they built this up, it's just these like constant in-ring segments where there's a little bit of talking, a little bit of scuffling, and that's it. We've seen at least this happen 3 or 4 times now between Dolph and Shinsuke, and I hope we get something different next week for the go-home. Main event time, Jinder Mahal, Kevin Owens, and Baron Corbin taking on Sami Zayn, AJ Styles, and Randy Orton. And guys, you know, I don't know what to tell you about this match because I started falling asleep. That's never happened to me before. In the history of me doing this show, doing this little segment, reviewing Raw and Smackdown, I've never fallen asleep during the show or the main event or whatever. And I like all 6 of these guys. I like their storylines, but it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's the sum of the parts of Monday and Tuesday. My body just said, can't do it anymore, and just fell asleep. I don't know what happened. I was in and out of it, and I caught the end. I saw it was a big old, I like the finish. I thought the finish was cool where everyone's hitting their big moves. Sami Zayn hits the Blue Thunder Bomb on Jinder. Baron Corbin with the backbreaker to Sami Zayn. Styles with the Pele kick to Baron Corbin. Kevin Owens shoves Styles out, and then RKO to Kevin Owens, and then Jinder with a Cobra Clutch Slam. I had to write all this stuff down. That's why I'm looking down at my notes here. And so Jinder wins the match, gets a nice win over Randy Orton. It's not a dirty win. He gets him from behind, and so it adds more heat to Jinder Mahal. And that's great, but I don't know. I just think that this main event didn't do much for me. Again, I like all 6 guys, but when you fall asleep in the main event, I don't know what to tell you. Time now for me to decide who won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. And folks, normally I shoot this stuff Tuesday night right after SmackDown's over, so my thoughts and my ideas are fresh. But as I told you, I started falling asleep during the main event of SmackDown. I was not going to have the energy to shoot it Tuesday night, so I'm here Wednesday morning shooting this thing. I've slept on it, and my knee-jerk reaction was to give the win to Raw simply because it did not make me fall asleep. But then when I woke up today and I thought about it more, I'm like, you know what? Like, Raw didn't do much worthy of a win for the week either. Like, Raw was technically, it was not sleep-inducing, but there was so much wrong with it. You know, the whole issue with the co-acting general manager stuff with Miz and Ambrose and the fact that it made no sense. Roman Reigns not selling worth a damn against Braun Strowman despite being like taped like the Yeti. The fact that, you know, Bray Wyatt and Finn Balor has no forward progress. There's no build-up to that from last week. There were some good things with Raw, and there were some bad things with Raw. There were some good things with SmackDown, but there were some bad things with SmackDown. And folks, I almost never do this. Only once in the history of Who Wore It Better have I done this before, and I said I would never do it again, that there must be a winner, but I can't. I cannot, in good faith, pick a winner this week. It is a draw. And I'm sorry if you guys waited all this time for a result and you didn't get one, but like I said, there's no way I can justify a win for either of these 2 shows this week, because I think they were both boring. And it was both, Raw was convoluted, SmackDown was boring. Neither of them were very entertaining. And sometimes I just try and boil it down to, well, what show entertained me more? And neither of them really did it for me. So I gotta, you hear the pros and cons for Raw. Like I said, I like the tag team turmoil match is great. Cesaro and Sheamus looked very good in this match. I think the Joe and Rollins match was good. I think it was a more physical match to me than what they did at Payback. The finish was a little meh. And I like the dynamic between Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax. I like to see where that's going. I just don't want them to call each other best friends. But like I said, co-acting GM sucked. Roman's not selling sucked. Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt, where's the heat with that? SmackDown, the only real thing that made me pop was the tag team title build. Breezango doing Fashion Files, even though it wasn't as good as last week's, in my opinion, it was still clever. And then you had the tag titles, the tag match with Breezango and the Ascension and the Usos coming afterward. That was a nice little intrigue there. But Rowan and Harper in the singles match with very little heat to it kind of irked me. Rowan winning was a head scratcher for me as well. And it's the main event. Like I said, I like all 6 guys. I like Jinder winning the way he did. But man, like, if the match puts me to sleep, that's not a good indication. And the way they set it up and the way they executed it, to me, it was just sort of a boilerplate match. Like, it didn't really do anything for me. So yeah, like I said, it doesn't happen very often on this segment, but for the first time in a long time, no show wore it better. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you guys saw something that I didn't. Let me know what you thought about Raw and SmackDown in the comment section below. And don't forget to vote which show you thought was better, if at all, in the gimmick in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Wregret, buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com, and check out the Patreon site to get early access on Thursday videos, as well as some other backer exclusive goodies. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.